Everyone.
Good morning.
Can I have a couple pieces of paper?
Microphones.
I only have a few. Just give me one.
Microphones now because we have microphones in the ceiling up here, so we don't have the real microphone. So that's why I have microphones. So
I don't.
Hi, Mike.
I have like 8,000 in the car.
Oh, 2,000 in mine.
okay, I'm here to talk, and I'm going to be your facilitator this morning. Welcome to the
Thank you.
Sarah Stevens Tuesday morning forum. Thank you. We have other facilitators. We have Ms. Laura Mascletti, Carlinia African, Jackie Edwards, Natalie McGarrath, who is our tag teacher. It's right there. We have Winston Robinson, and we have Steve Johnson in the back. Takes care of our video and our sound. And Teresa Shield is our chaplain. Okay, I'm gonna let Teresa get started with us this morning with a prayer. Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let us pray. Bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for a time of stillness to relinquish the activities of the day, to allow our minds to open, to learn, to thank you, Father, for our health and strength. We ask you today to keep us astonished at the blessings that you create in our lives forever. We thank you for your generosity. We thank you for your love and caring. We ask today that you remember all of our children everywhere today. Remember this crazy world of ours. Help us to better understand it. Remember our state, our county, and our city. Remember this forum and bless it today. Bless our neighborhoods and our homes. It's in your Son Jesus' name we pray. Let us say together, amen.
Amen. Okay, do we have any first timers here today? Anyone here for the very first time? Okay, great. Remember, we do have a virtual audience, so it's not just these people, we do have a virtual audience also. Okay, our forum runs until 8 to 9:45. At this time, we'll take announcements. Also, I'll just say this again because I know you already know it, but you raise your hand and I'll call on you in the order that you raise your hand to ask the question. Okay. Now, our guests today are County Commission candidates for District 4, 5, and 6. We have the District 4, Ray, not here, okay. And we have Mark Jerrell, Mark Jerrell, who's an interpreter. We have for District 5, Matthew Bradenour, and I don't see him in here, and Laura Meyer, right here. Okay, good. Thank you. That's District 5. District 6, we have Jeremy Brash, and Susan Rodriguez-McDowell. And we also have someone here to talk about the bonds, and we'll hear that also. And we're going to let them introduce themselves. I tell you what, I'll give you maybe 2 minutes each to introduce yourself, and then we'll ask questions. And Ms. Rodriguez-McDowell has to leave about 9:15 because she's got to go to her. She's in District 6, and you know that's far away, so she's got to get back over there to another meeting. So we'll, if you have questions for her, start there. But we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you.
Susan.
So time means,
Yeah, right.
got it.
So wrap it up.
Okay.
And then we'll ask the question.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Rodriguez-McDowell. I'm the commissioner, the incumbent for District 6. I was elected in 2018 after ousting a 22-year incumbent. And so I'm running for my third term, and I'm the mom of 3 adult children. They are 20, 22, and 24. And I am a wife of 27 years, and I've really been so honored to be a commissioner that represents the entire community. And the votes that I take, I'm only elected by the people of District 6, but I serve everyone in the entire county, as we all do. So thank you for the invitation to be here today. You ready for me?
You want me to go ahead?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Laura Meyer. I am the commissioner from District 5, which is East Boulevard to Highway 51, Monroe Road, and South Boulevard. Roughly, that's the area that I serve. I was elected in 2020 for my first term, and I'm running for my second term. I am a former educator. I taught high school social studies at a dropout prevention program with CMS. I'm a mom of 2 boys, 20 and 22, and I was an after-school program director for children from Sedgefield Middle School who lived in the Brick Hill community, right off Remount Road. I want to echo my commissioner, my colleague, who said that our votes carry through the whole community, not just our district. I feel like I have honored my district with my votes, but I feel like I've honored the entire community as well. And I'm seeking another term. I love my job. I like what I do. I feel like I'm making a difference, and I'm not quite done working for the people. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Commissioner Mark Jerrell. I'm serving in my second term on the board, representing District 4, which is right up the street. Since being elected, I've really tried to work to be a bridge builder. I've tried to combine my passion for people with policy achievements that I really believe have improved the quality of life for residents, not only in my district, but all across Mecklenburg County. And with the support of my colleagues, we've been able to deliver on policy achievements like the homes program, supporting nonprofit and immigrant grassroots organizations, $5 million in equity investment. We championed a history of systemic racism report about Mecklenburg County. And most recently, we delivered on source of income discrimination protections for residents right here in Mecklenburg County. My primary focus has really been around issues of equity and education, affordable housing, really trying to prevent gentrification, and really addressing this notion of systemic and institutional barriers that really perpetuate racism in our community. And so when we talk about the disparities that I know many of you will bring up today, that is a direct result of systemic racism. And so we've really had a focus on that. And I'm just really extremely grateful to be here for this opportunity to have a substantive discussion around policy. So thank you.
Okay, we're ready to get started with the questions. We have, so far we have Tommy Robinson has the first question, and then Bobby Shields.
Yeah, my question is, like, everybody now talk about they don't represent their district, they represent the whole community. Why don't you run it large? If you represent the whole community and not your district.
Sure, if you want, go ahead. You can.
Anybody.
I'll go first. Well, that's a great question. I mean, why not just run at large? Well, running at large is very difficult, for one thing. That would be very difficult. But I really think that having folks like myself and like Laura and like Mark in district seats who see the community as a whole and not just as, just their own little piece is really an advantage to the whole community, because the way I see it, the whole community is connected, and we have to remember how connected we are. We can't just be all these little isolated islands. So why not run at large? I never considered running at large. It's just, I'm not exactly sure if I have a great answer for that, other than when I was running, I was trying to oust somebody that I felt was not representing my values on the county commission, and that was Commissioner Bill James, who was a 22-year incumbent. And I saw that I could bring something to the table that he didn't bring. So that's why I ran in the first place. It wasn't because I had a ambition to be in politics. It was because I wanted my values represented at the county level.
I can tell you why I didn't run at large, or didn't consider it. I've lived in District 4 for a very, very long time. This is where my roots are. And so essentially, when I looked at how I felt like I could make an impact, I've been serving in the community even prior to running, many years prior to running. But when I looked at the district and what I was seeing in my district, I was very concerned. So District 4 is the most diverse district, no matter how you slice it. So if you talk ethnicity, culture, race, socioeconomics, District 4 covers all of Uptown and parts of South End, and then we go all the way out east. So it's a very distinct cutout. And many of you have heard me say I have the Near East, Middle East, and Far East. And I don't say that to be cute. I say that because it really represents the distinct nature and the competing priorities in a district that is that diverse. And when we talk about diversity, sometimes we just drill it down to race. But in my district, Mr. Robinson, the socioeconomic disparity across, depending on where you are, and if you live out where I am in 28215 and almost on the Cabarrus County line, there is huge disparity. And I felt like we were completely being ignored. I felt like people that looked like me were completely being ignored. I felt like people felt like East Charlotte ended at Plaza Midwood, and if I was lucky, at Eastland Mall. And I didn't like that. And I wanted to do things specifically for District 4, knowing, to your point, that my vote does impact the entire community.
And, I also never considered running at large. When I said that about my vote representing the whole community, we all have this, our votes, the at large and the district commissioners, our votes weigh the same. And I know when I cast that vote, it does affect the whole community, and that's what I meant. I know I don't represent District 4 or District 6 or District 2, and I represent District 5. But if we keep that narrow-minded throughout every vote we do, then we would be working in silos. And so we have to listen to each other, and that's what I mean. I say my vote reaches out to the whole community.
Okay, Mr. Shields.
Thank you. My name is Bobby Shields, and first I want to appreciate and thank each of you for being commissioners, because I know the work that you do and the great job that the big job you have. The other day I was in a forum, and the question came up about funding several priorities, and one of the candidates said that they would fully fund education. And having worked in government for a while, I was a bit concerned because maybe I missed the definition of fully funding and how that really works. So because you are commissioners, would each of you please describe your understanding of fully funded when people come to you with budget requests?
Start. Sure. I'm one of the commissioners who would like to fully fund education. I feel like right now, particularly after the pandemic, we have so many disparities, and I don't think our schools can do more with less. I think that we need to fund our schools. We need to fully fund our schools, and that includes the state doing what they're supposed to do, because the state is not funding education the way the state constitution says they were supposed to. And so unfortunately, it comes down to the county, and that's not fair to the county, but I do believe we need to fully fund education, fully. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. I was talking about the request. People come and make a request.
Okay.
And you would fully fund the request, is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Okay. And I will sort of echo what Commissioner Meyer said, is that the way I view it, our schools are woefully underfunded. And if you look at the history, you'll see that year after year after year, as a percentage of our full budget, their funding gets smaller and smaller. And so fully funding, in my view, means getting the state to do their part. They are supposed to be the major funders. And so fighting for the Leandro ruling is something that I've been doing for years, and I would continue to do that. But I do think that our county does have limitations on what we can fund because we have so many other priorities. I do believe that those other things, we have to fund many, many other things, is what I'm trying to say. So does that mean that fully, if someone comes and says, you know, they have an ask, meaning the school board, I assume you're speaking of. So I think we should have a cooperative relationship with the school board. In my opinion, to not fully fund their ask means that we're making a judgment call that they don't really need what they say they need, right? And so I think I would rather err on the side of if we have the funds to allocate those funds to the schools. And so I don't think in the past that they have asked for way more than they should ask. I think they have asked in line with what should be expected. And so, yes, I would fully fund their ask unless it was like totally out of bounds, which in my opinion, it has not been.
So, Mr. Shields, I would say thank you for that question. It's a simple question that you asked, but it is a complex answer, in my opinion. To me, let me go with the simple part of it. From a budgetary standpoint, when someone says fully fund my request, so all the departments will come to the manager, they'll submit a request, a budgetary request, and there's a number attached to that. And so when you talk about fully funding, that simply means that they ask for $500 million, they want the county commissioners to approve $500 million. To my colleague's point, there are not competing priorities, but we have multiple priorities that we are responsible for. So I look at it as a business owner, right? So departments can come to me and managers can say, hey, these are my needs. I have to make a decision because I have a view of the playing field that tells me what I am able to budget for any year for any of my departments that come to me with a request. Because there's things that they don't have visibility to or they don't know about, and I have to be prudent with my decision because there are always these X factors that come up that I'm going to have to make sure that we have to take care of. And so what happens in our community, the only way that we have revenue from a governmental standpoint are through taxes and fees, essentially, right? That's our way to do it. So you're balancing trying not to put too much pressure on our residents who really can't afford it now and doing a lot of heavy lifting. You're trying to adjust for people at the state level that have made decisions that impact us here. So when you say fully fund, would I like to provide all of the money that they're asking for? Theoretically, I would. But the complexity of it comes in when some of the outcomes that I see, I think there's an issue that from a business perspective, if a department head was coming to me and asking me for more money, but I wasn't getting the return on investment, I would have to question that. I would have to understand what's going on, and maybe it is money. I don't know, but we would have to dig deeper to figure that out before I just write the check or sign off on that. And so I just think it's complex. I think everyone's coming from the right place, but to my colleague's point, I do think it takes working together to figure these complex solutions out.
May I add one thing?
Mm-hmm.
There are requests from other entities, say CPCC, we fully fund them. Their request, and when we fund them, it's the same thing. So we do that in the county.
So, question?
No, I'm just saying that there are many situations that we do actually. But CPCC asks for $1 million, we give them $1 million. So the county does fully fund many organizations.
Okay. Thank you. If you want to follow up to that question, y'all can put you back on the, okay. Jackie. Oh, she stepped down, sure. Senator Waddell, I'm sorry. Senator Waddell.
Thank you so much. I'm your senator representing District 40, North Carolina General Assembly. Served on the school board for 6 years. And so I'm passionate about education because that was my life work. I'm concerned about the shortage of teachers and the teaching supplement that you've provided. I know it never seems like it's enough. And my question is concerning the supplement. Right now, you're second in the state concerning supplement for teachers. So what plans do you have in the future to provide more funding to attract teachers to stay in the classroom when it comes to the supplement?
Well, that's a tough one. I'll go first because we couldn't get, in my opinion, we didn't get enough funding this time. So in my plans going forward, one of the things that I have already talked to my colleagues about is having an education committee, because 42% of our budget is funding and education. And so in my view, that is a huge amount of our $2 billion. And I think commissioners should have a better grip on education funding and the impact of our dollars. And so that means from 0 to 3, that means pre-K, K-12, and post-secondary, for us to look at the entire education spectrum and see how our dollars are working. But in my view, one of the things that we've talked about recently was where the state did provide a supplement to the counties and it divided it up over, there's 100 counties in North Carolina. Only 95 of the counties got the funding, okay, for that's teacher supplement funding. And so they left Mecklenburg out of that. If we had gotten the same percentage of funding that, say, Union County got, which is, Union County is not a low wealth county. They're a higher than us wealth county if you look at their household income. If we had gotten their supplement, we would have had $10.8 million additional for our teacher supplements. That's the kind of, change or I guess you would call it an incentive, to bring teachers to Mecklenburg County if we were able to increase our supplement by that kind of percentage. That's not a plan that I have, though, because I don't have that kind of power. We don't have the authority to give what the state gave. We don't have the $10.8 million for that. But I'm just saying, we need to be working at every level. And I have become involved at, of course, the local level, but also at the state and national level on policy steering committees, because I see education as a crisis that's across the board that we have to pay attention to. And so I'm trying to get involved at every level, and that's why I'm doing that. So that's how I'm trying to approach it.
Senator Waddell, thank you for the question. It's something that I believe all of us want to see our teachers paid more. That's the one thing we want. We want our teachers to be paid more. But it takes 9 votes to pass that budget. And I know it was in the news, basically our disagreement over the budget, the education budget. Unfortunately, teachers, for whatever reason, I don't know, just are not paid enough. They're just not paid enough, and we must pay them more. And to do that, we have to fund education, and that's part of it. And obviously, no blame to you as a senator, but it's a battle with the state. And that supplement that we didn't get, that 95 counties got, I don't think people realized that Mecklenburg got left out. We cannot make up every shortfall that the state gives us. We have other priorities. But it just goes back to the question about fully funding education. We need to fund education, and we need to make teacher raises, teacher salaries our priority. It has to be.
Okay, Jen.
Good morning. Thank you so much for coming. My question has to do with persons who are still in the streets, in the way of being unsheltered. And, if you go along Batesford Road early in the morning, you'll see there's some folk there at, the corner of LaSalle and Batesford Road and some other little pockets. What are your plans with, community support to house these folk during the winter?
Do you want to do the following question?
Yeah, I would like to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Meier, can I,
Oh, yes. I'm
do you
sorry.
mind if I answer Senator Waddell's question? I didn't get a chance to chime in on that.
Oh, okay.
And then-
Yes,
I'm
yes.
good with it.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
So, but I just wanted to say, Senator Waddell, one, thank you for the question. One of the things that I would just add quickly is that when you look at the supplement itself, I think we should tread lightly, not to look at it in the sense of a race, Mecklenburg versus Wake, and who has the higher supplement. I don't think that's necessarily the way to solve or tackle the issue. We certainly all support paying teachers the maximum. I mean, teachers, I think if we made a statement that said our educators should be paid like we pay medical professionals, we would all agree with that. But I think there's an issue systemically when you're looking at how we are valuing our educators. And there's an issue with that. But I think one of the things that we don't necessarily do in our community is we don't have tough conversations around the ways that what it takes to fund. And until we start having those tough conversations around what it will take to pay educators their value and what it's worth and the impact on the residents of Mecklenburg County, we'll continue to have this incrementalism that we've seen over decades. And so when we're ready to have these substantive conversations and talk about the ways that we can fund them, and if the community tells us as electeds, hey, yes, we want to carry that burden, we want to take on that burden, we will certainly push that. But again, you have to balance that out with where our residents are now from a fiscal perspective. And those are just very, very tough conversations that we have to do. And a lot of it does come through Raleigh and really understanding the policies that are being set with a particular ideology or political philosophy. And those are just the realities of what we're dealing with.
Okay, oh, now Jackie's question. Yeah, Jackie, what are you?
Go ahead, Sue, because you
Oh,
have to
she
leave.
talked
Go
about
ahead. Okay.
homelessness during the winter, about housing in the country. Anybody?
That's a tough one. I'll tell you right now. We have many programs that have been put in place. We have some great examples of public-private partnerships that we have been doing. I can't remember the name of, is it called the
Tremont on the
one that we just
The
toured?
Rise.
The Rise,
on,
you know.
on
we-
Clanton.
But I know that there's more people that are not going to fit into one of those places. And so what are we doing about those that do not fit into the Rise?
Qualify
And-
or
yeah, because we have that's 88 spaces. Well, there's way more than 88 people that are still left out there. And I think, I guess what I would like to say is that there are places for those people if they wanted them in shelters. My understanding is that there's space, but people don't want to go, who are, in some cases, there could be mental health issues, there could be choices that, they don't want to give up whatever they have to in order to go into those shelters. I think the county is coming from a perspective where we do believe in housing first, so we think that's the most important thing is that people are housed, as opposed to saying, you have to deal with this issue or this issue before you can be housed. We would prefer saying you should be housed first, and then we'll deal with the issues. You guys want to chime in?
We don't want to make homelessness a crime, and
Right.
our homeless brothers and sisters being picked up and put in jail. That's not the answer. It's out of sight, out of mind for some people. But we know that substance abuse is one of the main reasons for homelessness, and we've got to battle substance abuse. We've got to bring that to light more, and I think that we need to, housing first, yes, but we've got to address the causes. We've got to address the causes. And there is not enough space, like Commissioner Rodriguez-McDowell said, but actually there is space. Like she said, people don't want to stop using their substances, and it's their choice to not go into the shelter. There is space at the shelter. I can't tell if you're, I can't.
I've done housing for 30 years in this community.
Right. I just feel like we need to address the causes of homelessness and not make homelessness a crime.
So Ms. Jagged, one of the things that I would add to this conversation, and I agree with my colleagues, but I would add this is, one, I think, government is here to help us set the conditions, right? Right now, one of the things that we don't have that we really need to solve to with respect to not only homelessness, but the other major challenges for particularly people with socioeconomically disadvantages, we don't have a single quarterback. We don't have someone quarterback in this thing. So we continuously, we take issues and we continuously try to piecemeal it together. I mean, these public-private partnerships are really, really important because our grassroots, nonprofits, folks, boots on the ground people, they are the subject matter experts. Government is not necessarily a subject matter expert in all of these things. We can bring the technical skills, we can bring some level of funding support, but we do need those subject matter experts to really quarterback these critical issues that we're dealing with. And so when you think that you take something like homelessness, there is not a strategy, and that's what we really have been diving deeper into. So you had Gene Woods and Kathy Besant with Bank of America that had this homelessness task force for us to create this community-wide strategy that showed a continuum of care. And that's what we really have to continuously support. There was a report, you can go back online and see at one of our budget policy meetings last year, and I'll deliver that information so that this group can have it and really look at the proposal that came out of it, the individuals that were a part of that task force, and what their recommendations were. And then you'll also see what we've done moving forward from a county perspective. And just to let you know, our staff just took a trip to, I think it was San Diego, I'm sorry, but it was somewhere in California, where they have addressed homelessness in a way that we want to try to take those best practices and bring them back here.
Oh, did everybody?
Good morning. So, see, I'm from Charlotte, and I guess about the last 5 years, it seems like the county has taken a back seat to the support of art and culture in the cities more upfront. And I just wanted to know, going forward, what is the county's role to support art and culture going forward? And is that still one of those soft services that we've deemed important to Mecklenburg?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. That's a question near and dear to my heart. So I think the reason why you see the city being more prominent in that space is because of tourism and the sort of big entities that we think of when we think of the arts, like the opera or the Blumenthal or the big museums, the symphony, those kinds of things drive tourism. And so they have dollars that are specifically for tourism. And so I think that's why they sort of have the task force that's doing that part of the arts. They're sort of funding what they call the bigs, the bigger organizations. But with the county, one of the greatest things about the county is the ASC support that we provide to them for culture blocks. And culture blocks is where we really try to get the arts out into the community and all over the community, far-reaching to all the smaller towns as well as in Charlotte. And so we will continue to fund culture blocks. I think we all believe in the power of bringing the arts to the people and funding those artists. One of the things that I had the great honor of doing was, as chair of economic development, I saw a place where our artists we could plug in a program for them like we have for other small business owners that is called Get Up and Grow. And so this is a program that we have where small business owners go for training, and I'm trying to hurry up and tell you this. So they go for training specific to business building and upping their revenues and stuff like that. Well, so we were able to do a pilot program this past summer for artists, where we got $30,000 and we got to give them a stipend. We had 30 artists be able to participate in this to help them grow their businesses. And so that's a place where I see economic development for these smaller grassroots artists, trying to help them grow their businesses.
The only thing I can add to that is we just don't make a big splash like the city does with the bigs. And so I think people don't quite know what the county does, and I think that's on us. I think we should publicize it more because it's good news what we do for the arts. And I know the three of us sitting here, we're all very big proponents of the arts, particularly creating equity in the arts and bringing the arts to the people who can't get to, say, an uptown exhibit or an uptown show. So that is something that I'm proud that we do for the county. I don't think I can add any more than what Commissioner Rodriguez-McDowell said. We're definitely committed to funding the arts.
Did you have to say something?
If you want to move on, I don't have to.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, Mark,
Okay. I don't mean that.
that was an important question.
I'm sorry. I mean, really, if you didn't have anything additional to add, and I thought they covered it pretty good.
Okay, that's
If you think they covered it pretty good.
they.
Okay. You know, I'm looking at this long list of names, I'm trying to get through everybody. And I know that Ms. Rodriguez-McDowell has to leave, and I think you have to leave in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yes, I do. I'm sorry about that.
Before you leave, I do want to say, you know, I have a huge respect for all 3 of you. And I think that you're the ones who need to go to Raleigh to set this policy and make these changes in Raleigh. You know, because you know more about it than anybody else. I mean, the commissioners and the school board members. So I'm just encouraging you all to run.
Well, the problem isn't that Mecklenburg County representation doesn't agree with what our positions are. Our Mecklenburg delegation does agree with us for the most part. So it's not that they don't, it's that they don't have a voice in Raleigh because of the huge majority that the Republicans have. And so what we need to do is make sure that we're electing more representatives that are Democrats that will be able to influence the vote in Raleigh, and that means outside of Mecklenburg. Other districts.
That's absolutely true.
But thank you for that compliment.
Okay.
That felt like a compliment.
Okay. Let's see, we have Tommy.
Yes.
And then, are you able to stay for Tommy's question?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, then I'll go right after that.
She's got to go across town.
Yeah, I would like to get back to budget and whatever. Like, why don't you get the teachers? Like, why don't you get professionals to choose teachers? You got people in communities that are experts on certain things, but you hire people with a master's degree who don't know nothing. You know, so why can't you set up committees or something to use the experts that you have in the community, people who are making a living from it, people, but you'll bring someone in with a PhD in art who don't know nothing, and you pay them all this money.
I think something like for the CTE jobs, you know, those skill-based jobs like automotive.
Automotive mechanic.
So you're speaking about in schools?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anywhere. I mean, in schools and business, like you hire, you have these committees to hire experts and they're not experts. You know, just because you go to Johnson and Wales, that doesn't make you a chef. You know, but you would hire someone.
I think what I would like to say to that is, if you're speaking about in the school system, that's not something that we have any authority over or purview over. So, but if you're talking about in other respects, I think one of the things that I feel really proud of is that as a county, we are engaging with people with lived experience in the different areas that we are working in. And so even when you look at our ARPA funding, we're pushing that money out into the community to people who know the needs and know how to address them. And they may not have PhDs, but they have lived experience and they have an impact that only they can have as grassroots. I feel like one of the things that we have done as a board in these last 4 years that Commissioner Jerrell and I have been serving, and Commissioner Meyer has the last 2 years, is trying to push down the money into the organizations that are more grassroots. And so I feel really proud of that. And with that, I have to say goodbye, but I really want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here, and apologies for having to cut out early. So
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to come.
absolutely, my pleasure.
Bye.
See you guys later.
See ya.
Okay,
Sorry, I was taught to put my chair back.
We have Rashid, and then we have this young lady right here. Wait a minute, did we finish that question, Tommy?
Yeah.
Okay, you satisfied, Tommy?
Yes.
Okay, Rashid.
That's like, what are you like studying for, like for environmental protection, you know, like the county and stuff? Like what groups you're working with?
You can go.
So yes, we actually have an environment. Actually, you should.
Okay,
Since
I'll take it.
Mark's on environmental.
Yeah, so thank you for that question around the environment. I think the environment is something that is in our wheelhouse, is something that we do, but we don't talk about enough. So I appreciate you lifting that up. I actually sit on the Environmental Stewardship Committee. I've sat on that committee since I've been elected in 2018. It's really important to me. One of the things that, one of the major accomplishments that we've done with respect to the environment is we've developed what's called the Environmental Leadership Action Plan, or ELAP. I would encourage everyone to go to mecnc.gov to look at that plan, because the county actually took a lens and applied a racial equity lens to this. When you look at how communities of color have been impacted historically over generations as it relates to the environment and lack of infrastructure and protections in those communities, it has had devastating impacts to communities of color. When you look at healthcare, which then ties back into jobs, right? So if you're not healthy, you can't go to work, right? And so if you can't go to work, it creates this generational cycle that has an adverse impact on us. And so when you look at the environmental justice lens that we've applied, that's something that's historic. It's never been done in Mecklenburg County before. We've also looked at things like land acquisition. As with the community grows, and you guys know we are growing at a rate that has just been unprecedented over a really expanded period of time. When we first got on the board, Commissioner Rodriguez-McDowell and myself first got on the board, we were at $6 million a year as it relates to land acquisition, which is abysmal. Today, and Commissioner Meyer voted on this as well, and the last budget, we moved from $6 million to $20 million a year in land acquisition. And then this last budget, we were at $50 million a year as it relates to land acquisition. Now, what does that mean to us? Well, it allows us, when the county, as you all know, has moved into an unprecedented space as it relates to affordable housing, and really leveraging our land to really support additional units to be built. So it's not just a city issue, right? The county is leaning in unprecedented ways as well. So that $50 million allows us to purchase land at a rate that I can't say keeps up with developers, but it moves us more into the game where we have not been previously. And so when you think about the issue like the environment, the connections that I'm trying to communicate to everyone is to show you how all of these critical issues that we bring up today or even moving forward are interconnected. When you talk about the environment, you have to talk about jobs, you have to talk about education, you have to talk about affordable housing, you have to talk about healthcare. And those are all the things where the county is trying to lean in.
Okay, yes, good. I don't know your name. I'm on stage.
No, it's not her. It's Becky.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, beside Jackie.
Beside Jackie.
I'm sorry.
It's
Go behind you, beside Jackie.
What's your name? Tell us your name.
Kiva Samuel.
Kiva Samuel.
Okay, yeah.
I heard the intros and most of you described the diversity in your districts. Can you speak to how you might balance the needs of constituents in your district? How do you prioritize? How do you make sure that deliver something to everyone?
Yeah, sure.
So that's a great question about District 5. I don't know if you're familiar with District 5. We are District 5 is predominantly white and very little affordable housing, like officially affordable housing. And so balancing, the question is for me, balancing the needs of my district with the rest of the county versus and balancing the needs in my district of my constituents. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I have to, I have to think about how they want me to vote. For example, in education, I know I keep coming back to education, but I know how my constituents want me to vote on education. But I have to remember we've got the entire county and the problems in the entire county and the disparities that we've been talking about and the opportunity gaps that we've been talking about. And so I have to always keep that in mind too. And so, and it goes back to, what my vote does for the whole community. It's a game. It's not a game. It's a tightrope. I have to walk a tightrope, knowing what I need to do for the community and keeping the people over here happy too. And I honestly think that I've done a pretty good job. My district has, over the last several years, it's changing. It's not as conservative as it used to be. It's way more moderate than it used to be. And no, it doesn't look like the whole county, but I think that I balance their needs and the needs of the community pretty well.
So, Kiva, thank you for that question. Why don't you tell everybody where you serve in the county?
So I serve as the chair of the planning commission.
Hey, you're doing a great job. So thank you for your service. So I really appreciate that question. I think I did outline the diversity of my district in particular, and I do have the most diverse district, no matter how you slice it. And I'm not just talking from a racial perspective, but for me, the way that I balance it out is relatively simple. I look at it. I have certain people in my district that have wants, and I have other people in my district that have needs. The needs are my top priority, period. Those who have not had access, those who have not had opportunity, those who haven't had a voice, they come to the top of the list. Now, are there issues that are critical to my more affluent communities? Yes. And so as electeds, we got to walk and chew gum at the same time. I have to balance multiple priorities on any given day, all day long. I mean, that's just what we do. But when I talk about my focus, if you go back and you look at our budget meetings, if you go back and look at our retreats, you will see that Mark Jerrell's voice has been consistent for those who have been shut out of this process historically and traditionally. There's no mistake about it, period. That's just how I operate, and I'm not going to change. Being the first African-American elected in my district, I do feel a greater sense of responsibility to provide a voice for my people and to make sure that when I talk about grassroots, I'm not just talking about that. One of my first initiatives was to make sure that our grassroots organizations receive funding, because I knew how many people were really struggling out here on the ground doing all the heavy lifting. but getting no help from the county, and we were giving help to the same people over and over and over again. That's not what I'm about. And so, again, like I said, those with the needs, if you talk about equity, yes. Do I try to overcompensate and really apply equity and not just use the term? Yes, I do. And if you go down to Harrisburg Road, you will see an overcompensation, an overt attempt. When you look at the systemic racism report and the equity investments initiative, that was an overt attempt to overcompensate and to apply. And so, again, I think for me personally, I've been consistent in all of that. And when I say I hate using that, because we can't do it alone, right? It takes 5 votes for us to pass anything. And I have been so blessed to have the support of my colleagues for the most part in all of that, and understanding where we have not achieved equity and where we need to do better. So I appreciate the question.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions, and I've got to end with them because we've got the bonds we've got to get to. Okay, so let me get this lady right here. Wait a minute, you and Blanche and Jackie, and I'm going to give you all just you have to be under 1 minute to answer the question. Okay, I'm sorry, but, but.
Good morning, I'm Faith Triggs with Habitat Charlotte Region, and the commissioners had done a forum a couple of months ago on equity firms and corporations buying single-family houses in Mecklenburg County. I think there's about 11 to 13,000 that they actually own. Wanted a quick update on that, the follow-up that's been done on that, and maybe one thing that each of you can identify that you or the county have control over in expanding affordable housing and affordable home ownership.
Can you repeat the first part? I'm not sure. I understand.
So probably several months.
Oh, the budget policy.
It was at the budget policy,
Yes.
but it wasn't a forum. Yes.
Okay, that's what. Okay.
It's been some months ago.
Yeah. Okay.
And, there was you guys did it was like a panel discussion on equity firms that were purchasing.
Okay.
It was a staff.
Right. Okay, I understand.
I watched the video.
Okay, so big crisis and I know everyone gets phone calls and text messages asking to sell your home. And it's equity firms that are coming in, buying up homes and then renting them out at high prices. And so, yes, I understand that. And we did get a presentation on that. The only update, so what the conclusion was, there's not much the county can do. They're not doing anything illegal, unethical, yes, but they're not doing anything illegal. They're offering cash. And sometimes it's hard for people to say no to cash. And so pretty much what the conclusion was, while we can't do anything to stop it, we can work with homeowner associations they need to come up with rules and policies to try to maybe, for example, keep so many houses from being rented or at a time, sort of thing. So that's pretty much what we heard from.
So, Faith, the only thing that I would add is that education is critical and crucial to us working with, to Commissioner Meyer's point, neighborhood associations and other community leaders. But also, we've got to do a better job of setting the conditions to allow people to become homeowners. And that's, one of the things that we're going to have to try to solve to. The problem is when investors come in with cash and you have to have homeowners that finance, most sellers want the cash. And so it's hard for us to control those types of conditions, but we do have to provide more opportunity. And we're going to have to lean in much more creative ways to try to thwart that.
Okay, Blanche.
Real quickly, back in 2018, when I came to the city about Lake Arbor with the housing, because they were in private kind of situations. And then I remember when the commissioners told us to go back to the city. But now I see you saying that now, even though I know some of your duties like health and some of the other areas, so now you're saying, because like with Jackie question, so now you're saying that that you're doing a little bit more on housing, but there's a lot of organizations out here that deals with housing and stuff. So how are you partnering with some of them in order to understand exactly what is still really going on? Because I did this in 2018 and we got a lot of support from a lot of other people.
Well, in 2018, the board that Mark started on, I know you can talk about this, but they are the ones who prioritize affordable housing for the first time in the county's history, correct?
Well, in the way that we
In the
do
way
it.
that they
So,
did.
Previously, they talked about wraparound, and then we actually talked about units.
Right. And then just this past in 2020 or 2021, we prioritize affordable housing as well. So traditionally, the county has not worked with affordable housing, but we are now. And we are investing, particularly in NOAA's nationally occurring affordable housing, which is wonderful. And we just voted on one recently, a new NOAA. I'm sorry?
Pepper Tree
Apartments, on Central Avenue. So investing in these affordable housing projects, I think, is making a dent. It's not going to solve the problem, obviously, but every little bit helps. And not working with the city this way, I think, is a great way that the boards are collaborating. It's a great way.
Ms. Blanchard, if you remember though, the county did lean in on the Lake Garber issue, and there was another issue as well in my district where we did come in to help in that situation. And I think to the second point of your question, if you're talking about should we probably expand our scope of organizations that we work with, I think there's always opportunity. There are factors. A lot of times people do ask, like, how come you're not working with organization X or organization Y? And I think that's fair, but I also want to tee up that there is a process to evaluate the organizations that are able to work with the county. And that sometimes from my understanding, everybody's just not eligible. But at the same time, I think we have to do much better at working with additional organizations that are the experts in the space that do provide us the information that we're needed to provide value to the community.
Okay, and Jackie.
Would it be possible for you to send that information as what the process is for those new nonprofits who may be interested in partnering or becoming vendors with the county?
Becoming vendors with the county? Absolutely.
And also, ARPA. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
My question is, can you give us just like a brief update on Brooklyn Village?
We were just talking about that. I want to jump in here real fast and say we're having another round of ARPA money, and that's, I think, the deadline is November 7th.
We can
send that. We did give quite a lot of money to affordable housing type situations in our last round. Justice involved individuals, housing for justice involved individuals. I can't name the organizations off the top of my head, but a lot of grassroots organizations were awarded grants from that ARPA money. We're about to actually today get an update on Brooklyn Village in our meeting at 2:00.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right, Ms. Jackie. We'll have an update today. The deck was sent out for us to review last night. So there's some questions, but it does look like it's moving forward. But I would say candidly, I think some of the questions that'll come up will be around the impact of the interest rates, also supply chain issues. So how does that impact the timeline? But you all can tune in later on today to really hear how we drill down as commissioners. I think there'll be other questions as well, but those are some of the main questions that I'm going to have and really want to solve to, and to really drill down and make sure that the current investor is still in the same place that we were when it was voted on prior to me getting on the board.
And particularly the affordable housing units that was promised.
I saw it on the news. I think it was it workforce housing?
No. Well, it's between 30% and 60% AMI. It's 115 units. And so one of the other things that we need to make sure today that we're clear on the way the disbursement of those units are going to be, because I suspect with the way the economy is going, there's going to be, there probably will be proposals of adjustments based on that. And we're going to have to really hold the line as commissioners to make sure that the community is not adversely impacted and that people live up to what they promised this community. I mean, and you guys are going to have to make sure that you hold us accountable to not break and just tell us exactly how you want us to go with this. We represent you.
Okay, I want to thank you all for coming today. Out of great information, and we look forward to you sending that information about how people can work with the county to Jackie. Jackie, do you want to receive that information, or how do you want to get that? Send it to Steve. You can send it to Steve. Okay. You can send it to Steve. But you know our website. You've seen our website. You should have Steve John.
Thank you for having us. We really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
us, everybody.